If you want both purified and instant hot or cold water on demand, your options get pretty limited pretty fast. One of the systems I've been getting a ton of requests from you guys about is this one right here, the Philips Water Dispenser with the Aquaporin inside membrane. When you look it up online and read about all its features and benefits, it sounds really great. You get 6 stages of filtration, built-in remineralization, a real-time TDS display, hot and cold water presets, and a big brand name behind it. So I bought it myself, ran it through my full hands-on testing process, sent the water to an independent lab, and scored it with the same data-driven system I use for every filter on this channel. In this video, I'll walk you through exactly how the Philips Water Dispenser performed, where it impressed me, where it fell short, and whether or not I think it's worth your money compared to other countertop RO systems. Let's talk about price first, and interestingly, you can't currently order this directly from Philips. At the time of recording, the Philips countertop RO dispenser with UV costs $799 on Amazon. That puts it at the higher end of the price range for countertop reverse osmosis systems. They do offer a couple cheaper models, the Basic and Plus, which cost $310 and $550 respectively. I'll drop links in the description if you want to see exactly what I'm talking about, but for this review, I'm gonna focus on the Pro UV model, which is the one I personally tested. Philips packages all 6 filtration stages into a single cartridge, so you don't have 4 or 5 different filters with different replacement schedules to manage. Based on the rated capacity of 528 gallons and replacement filter price, $119.99, I calculated the ongoing cost as 22 cents per gallon. That's right in line with what I see from a lot of other countertop RO units, which range from 8 to 27 cents per gallon. So you're paying a premium up front, but you're not getting hammered on ongoing costs like you do with other types of filters like pitchers. But the real question is whether the performance and features justify that premium price tag. From a filtration perspective, everything happens inside that single multi-stage cartridge. First, there's physical filtration to catch larger particles like sand and rust, followed by granular activated carbon to reduce chlorine, tastes, and odors and VOCs. Then there's an additional sediment filter layer to protect the membrane, then the Aquaporin inside RO membrane itself, which is where most of the heavy lifting happens in terms of stripping out dissolved contaminants. After that, the water passes through a polishing carbon stage to clean up any remaining tastes, odors, or VOCs that may have slipped through, and finally through a remineralization layer that adds some minerals back and helps keep the pH closer to neutral. As a user, you don't really have to think about any of that. You just have one cartridge to replace when the machine tells you it's time. On the front panel, you get a digital display that shows a real-time TDS reading, so you can see the difference between your tap water and your filtered water at a glance. There are 4 temperature presets: cold 40 degrees, ambient 63 degrees, warm 113 degrees, and hot 203 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, I tested the temperature for hot and cold, and it didn't reach the advertised 40 degrees or 203 degrees. The coldest my thermometer showed was 44.7 degrees, and the hottest it got was 113.6 degrees. Of course, measuring with a meat thermometer like this obviously isn't the most accurate, but it gives us an idea of the actual temperature versus what's displayed on the screen. There are 4 volume presets as well: 8, 12, 24, and 32 ounces, so you can hit a button for say 1 cup or 1 mug and walk away. There's also a child lock to prevent accidental hot water dispensing, and a semi-automated flush feature for when you install a new filter or need to purge the unit. On top of that, Philips claims a 75% recovery rate, which means for every 3 parts of purified water you get, only 1 part is rejected as wastewater. Compared to many other reverse osmosis systems, that's actually pretty efficient. A lot of conventional RO systems waste more water than they produce, so 3 to 1 in favor of purified water is solid. It's a nice mix of efficiency, convenience, and set it and forget it maintenance. But performance always comes down to what the testing data says, and I'm excited to show you what the lab found. But before we get into that, I want to quickly lay out the main pros and cons I noticed while testing this unit, which are important to know about. First, and most importantly, the contaminant reduction performance in my lab testing was excellent. It performed performed like an RO system should, knocking out the vast majority of health-related contaminants in my tap water, including near total or total reduction of several metals and inorganics. I also liked how the built-in remineralization stage kept the pH right around neutral. The reverse osmosis process normally drives the pH down and can leave the water tasting what some people describe as flat or acidic. With the Phillips Water Dispenser, the lab results showed the pH dropping from about 7.6 down to roughly 7, so still neutral. Another big plus is how simple the maintenance is. Having all 6 stages, including the membrane and remineralization in a single cartridge, makes life a lot easier. The unit keeps track of filter life for you and will tell you when it's time to change it instead of you trying to remember to set calendar reminders for various filter lifespans. And then there's the efficiency and convenience factor. That 3-to-1 efficiency ratio means you're wasting less water than many other RO units. Pair that with instant hot water for tea, coffee, or cooking, or chilled water for those who like that, and you can really start to see the appeal of a high-tech water filter like this. If you're someone who's constantly boiling water on the stove, using an electric kettle, or filling ice trays to get your water cold, having that functionality built into your water filter can be surprisingly handy. Something else I love about the design of this system is that the water is filtered into an external removable pitcher rather than an internal reservoir. A lot of countertop RO units store purified water in internal plastic tanks you can't easily access for deep cleaning. With this Philips unit, you can just pull out the pitcher and wash it in the sink like any other jug. It's also really nice when you need a larger volume of water quickly, like filling a pot for pasta or topping off a humidifier. Instead of waiting for the internal pump to slowly dispense everything through the spout, you can simply remove the pitcher, pour what you need, and put it back in place. Now, let's talk about the trade-offs because this system definitely isn't perfect. The obvious one is price, and at just about $800, this is one of the most expensive countertop water filters I've tested. Even compared to other hot water capable RO units, it's at the top of the price range. The next big concern for me is certification transparency. Philips markets this unit as being WQA certified to NSF-ANSI 372 for lead-free materials. The problem is that when I went to search the WQA database for this model, nothing showed up. We reached out to Philips and they did send this clipped image of a certificate, but they weren't able to provide a direct link to a live, verifiable certification listing. For a system at this price point making certification claims, I expect to be able to find the official certification listing, period. And although external, the purified water is stored in a plastic tank. It's also worth mentioning that the Philips Water Dispenser isn't the fastest system I've tested. In my timing tests, it took about 6 minutes and 20 seconds to purify a full tank, which works out to a flow rate of roughly 0.07 gallons per minute. The unit itself also has a fairly large footprint, so you'll want to make sure you've got enough counter space and clearance. And finally, their return policy is weak compared to others. You can theoretically return products purchased within 30 days, but the unit has to be unused and in its original packaging. So yeah, you can technically return it, but you can't try it first like you can with many other water filters. Now let's talk about how I tested the Philips Water Dispenser and what the lab results actually showed. And if you like this kind of data-driven testing, do me a favor and hit the like button and let me know in the comments which water filter you'd like to see me test next. For all the filters I review on this channel, I use the same standardized process with TapScore, which is a third-party service that specializes in water quality testing. For this system, I took 2 sets of samples. The first was a baseline sample I took straight from the tap. I filled a clean bucket with tap water, swirled it to mix it thoroughly, and took the baseline sample directly from there. Then I poured water from the bucket into the Philips unit and then collected the post-filtration from the dispenser. Both samples went to TapScore for full analysis. The only exception was chlorine, which I tested on-site using test strips since chlorine dissipates quickly and doesn't transport well. When I score these systems, I compare the results to stricter health guideline levels rather than just the EPA's legal MCL limits. The idea here is to look at a filter's contaminant reduction based on human health, not just whether the water meets legal limits, which are set to balance health risks with treatment costs borne by water utilities. In my baseline tap sample, the lab detected a number of different contaminants that can cause potential health concern. Most important were uranium and fluoride, which were detected above conservative health guideline levels. After running that same water through the Phillips dispenser, most of those contaminants were reduced by 80 to 99%, and several dropped down to below the reporting limit. Uranium was reduced from 0.032 ppm to below the reporting limit. Fluoride went from 1.4 ppm down to 0.1 ppm, which is a 92.86% reduction. Nitrate, sulfate, zinc, phosphorus, copper, and molybdenum were also all completely removed to below the reporting limit. Barium was reduced by about 83%, and strontium by about 81%. That's exactly the kind of performance I'd expect from a reverse osmosis system. Because the RO process is so thorough, I also like to look at how these systems change the aesthetic parameters of the water. They don't just remove the bad stuff, but also strip out calcium, magnesium, and other dissolved minerals. With this Philips unit, calcium was reduced by 84%, magnesium by nearly 96%, and sodium by 78%. Even though those minerals are being reduced, they aren't being reduced by as much as they would be without remineralization, where I'd expect 90% plus rates of reduction across the board. This helped keep the pH right around neutral, going from about 7.6 in the baseline to around 7 after filtration. There was only an 80% reduction in total dissolved solids, which is another good indicator that the remineralization filter is doing what it's supposed to do. Interestingly, both manganese and potassium showed up in the post-filtration sample at 1.58 and 0.0021 ppm respectively, where they didn't appear in the baseline sample. So even though the system greatly reduces magnesium, it appears the Riemann filter adds traces of calcium, sodium, and potassium post-filtration. And at 0.0021 ppm, manganese is well below the health guideline level of 0.1 ppm, so not a concern, and it's actually an essential nutrient at low doses. So with all that said, there are a few potential deal breakers you should know about. The first and biggest is the lack of official performance certifications. My independent lab results show it works well on my water, which is great. But from a big name brand and at this price point, I'd expect at a minimum, certification to NSF ANSI 58 for TDS reduction. The second deal breaker is simple: price versus what you get. If you don't really care about having hot or cold water on demand from the same unit, or you're just trying to get the best contaminant reduction per dollar, there are other systems that provide that at a fraction of the cost. You can get an extensively performance certified countertop RO like Aquaporin for literally less than half the price, or a hot water capable unit like the WaterDrop A1 for closer to $600 instead of $800. And finally, the strict returns policy won't actually let you try the unit first to see if it's a good fit or not. A lot of other brands offer 30-day money-back guarantees, but Philips only takes returns for unused items. So who is the Philips countertop RO a good fit for then? In my opinion, it's for someone who has plenty of counter space and wants a high-tech, all-in-one system that you can use for pretty much all your daily water needs. If you like the idea of having hot and cold purified water on tap, a single filter cartridge to replace, and the flexibility of that removable pitcher for easy cleaning and quick pours, it could be a good option for you. If that kind of convenience and functionality are high on your priority list and you're okay with the price tag, I think the Philips can make a lot of sense. But if official third-party certifications backing up performance claims are important to you, you'll probably want to look elsewhere. If you're leaning towards a hot water system, check out my full review of the WaterDrop A1 next, where I show you how it performed in our lab testing and the scores it achieved. So click or tap to keep watching.